In 1967, Bud Grant's first move as the Minnesota Vikings' new head coach was to acquire British Columbia quarterback Joe Kapp.
The only thing he ever said to me personally up close was 3 words: get a haircut.
In 1967, he meant Bud Grant's first move as the Minnesota Vikings' new head coach to the national anthem was to acquire British Columbia quarterback Joe Kapp.
The only thing he ever said to me personally up close was 3 words: get a haircut.
In 1967,
the national anthem was very important to me. The least we can do is give respect to the flag and stand at attention. We'll line up, we'll all stand the same way, put our feet in the same direction, hold your helmet the same way, no chewing gum, scratching your behind. I put Carl Eller, Jim Marshall, and Mick Tinkelhoff. You guys are in charge. I used to call it the Viking formation. That was good.
As for his team's identity, Bud took his cues from the old stadium in which they played, which by season's end was a winter wonderland.
We got the right name, we're the Vikings, so let's be a cold weather team. And we're going to be cold because we're going to practice in the cold, you're going to get used to the cold, and you can catch and kick and hold a football in the cold weather. Look what the other team is doing. They got heaters over there. Where are the players? They're huddled around those heaters. They're not even watching the game. They're trying to get warm. I said, we'll alleviate that because we won't have heaters. You watch the game. You be ready to go in. You be ready to play. Let them have their heaters.
Let's go, defense! Hurts a little, huh? Lester hurts a little, huh?
318! And then they got to buy into it. They got to buy into the team concept. None of them are worth their salt by themselves, but together they were great.
Their 1969 motto was 40 for 60. 40 men for 60 minutes. Bud Grant's kind of team.
There is no most valuable Viking. There are only 40 most valuable Vikings. I just can't accept this. Thank you.
These selfless cold weather warriors won their first league championship and a Super Bowl berth, validating the methods of the man who molded them.
He looked at the talent that he had, and he built a team around the talent that he had.
They weren't always pretty, but they were immune to the cold and totally committed.
He knew what it took to win football games. He knew what type of a person he wanted for his football teams, and we loved to play for him.
The 1969 Vikings advanced to football's biggest stage. But in Super Bowl IV, their magical season came crashing down.
There was no underestimating our opponent or anything like that. We felt that we could certainly do the things that we needed to do to win, and it just didn't happen.
To a man, nobody cried. Nobody made excuses. Nobody blamed anybody. It was a team right to the end.
For Bud Grant, life went on.
You've got 6 children, you come from absolute zero. Your main commitment in life is to take care of your family and to provide them possibly with the things that you didn't have, and you get satisfaction. I get more satisfaction out of providing for my family than I ever did coaching a football game.
It was this healthy life perspective that endeared Bud Grant to the men who played for him.
Because he didn't sleep in the locker room. He didn't watch film endlessly. He went out and hunted on Saturday before the game. He never yelled. He never screamed. He never berated. But he was a great, great leader and a great, great coach, and I was privileged to play for him. If you could not play for Bud Grant, you could not play.
From 1973 through 76, Fran Tarkenton quarterbacked Grant's Vikings to 3 more Super Bowls, on his way to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. A trio of players from Minnesota's famed Purple People Eaters defense also distinguished themselves as future Hall of Famers.
Hey, folks, welcome to the first episode of the 2021 regular season of Vikings Report Rewind. I am Ted Glover, your host. With me, the founder, purveyor, and writer emeritus of the Daily Norseman, Christopher Gates, and my partner in crime on our weekly Vikings Report, Drew and Ted show, Drew Bunting. And in the background, doing all the magic that makes all this happen, is Toonces the Talking Cat. Before we get going, we're going to have a bigger tribute to it when we do our show tomorrow, and you'll see it next Friday. But we want to acknowledge the passing of all-time Vikings legend Mick Tingelhoff, Hall of Famer, played 17 years, one of the greatest Vikings of them all. Never missed a game in that time, and it was a sad day when that news came across the wire for us. Boys, I don't know where we're going to start. Chris, why don't you kick us off with the Vikings and how the game started out? Did it start out the way you expected or not?
I think it was nice that in tribute to Mick Tingelhoff, the Vikings offensive line set out to commit 53 penalties today, and they damn near got there when it was all said and done. How do you commit 3 false start penalties on one drive, and then you got to hold? I mean, the offense is moving forward, and then all of a sudden somebody does something stupid. You can't win football games at any level committing penalties at the rate the Vikings committed. I mean, they had 12 accepted penalties. I don't know how many they had that were declined. So you're probably up around 16, 17, 18 penalties in one football game. You don't win football games like that. They were lucky they had a chance at overtime even. But yeah, it started out just on that first drive, 3 false starts and a holding penalty. And I mean, there's nothing that anybody can do about that, really.
Drew, how do you know off the top of your head? The last number I heard was 16. Do we know how many penalties the Vikings had in today's game?
I was looking it up, but I think it was 7. I heard 17.
17 penalties.
10. It was 10 in the first half. But Chris, you say that like you're surprised by it. I mean,
I wish I was. I'm not anymore.
It's not surprising.
But and like Ted said on the social medias and whatnot, that's coaching. That's coaching. That's not on Kirk Cousins.
That's not what the Zimmer fans will tell you.
Defensive coordinator. That's coaching.
Here's my thing. I've 100% lay undisciplined, crappy penalties like that on the preparation, and the preparation is laid directly at the feet of the coaching staff. I can excuse maybe 1 or 2 false start penalties. It's the first time in a year you've got the crowd back in the stadium. It's probably a couple plays to get used to. I totally get that, but that was one of the more undisciplined performances I've seen from a Mike Zimmer team. But it seems to be a continuing trend over the last couple years, and if they had 17 penalties called, I think Toons has just told us 12 penalties for 116 yards that were accepted. They still had almost as many penalties in the second half. So it got marginally better in the second half. That trend continued throughout the entire game.
Yeah, I'll do a quick look here to see how many penalties they had declined in addition to the 12 that were accepted.
I know there was 10. There was 10 in the first half, and the last 30 seconds, the Bengals declined 2 in the last 35 seconds. So it could have been 12, but they declined 2. So they had 10 in the first half. They end up with 12, but I think it was 17. So first off,
I see 4 decline penalties plus the 12 that were actually accepted.
16.
So yeah, that
16.
16. Okay, 16.
First up, shout out to Mick Tingelhoff. Man, sad day yesterday, but
it was.
At least you didn't have to watch that. because that was embarrassing offensive line work right there. That was.
It was.
That's probably
terrible.
the worst offensive line play. Let me get this out of the way. I've been talking all week. We're going to give a prize out. I'll hold myself to it. But this is the last doggone day we're going to give a prize out when we lose. Nobody gets prizes when we lose except today. That's my mistake. I'll give it out today. That's it. The rest of the season, you got to win to earn a prize. But that offensive line was just stunk.
So let's talk about the offensive line. We had our starting left tackle, the Vikings starting left tackle, Rashad Hill, left guard, Ezra Cleveland, center, Garrett Bradbury, right guard, Oli Udo, and then right tackle, Brian O'Neill. I believe, with the exception of maybe O'Neill, everybody had at least one penalty called on them.
O'Neill had a false start.
He did.
Point,
Okay.
So he had one too. They hit it's not the trifecta. I'm not sure what 5 is, but yeah, that was ugly.
You know, one thing, Drew, you and I talked about this on Vikings Report throughout the offseason and once we got into the preseason, especially when we got into the preseason, when the Vikings coaching staff made a conscious decision not to play some key starters at all this preseason. Kirk Cousins played. The starting offensive line didn't play the first game. Key members of the defense didn't play at all. Do you think that was a factor in today's sloppy performance, yes or no?
Hey, Drew, don't worry. It's just practice games. Hey, Drew, it's only preseason. It doesn't matter. They'll kick it into gear. Hey, Drew, they'll flip a switch. Why do you worry so much about preseason, Drew? There you go, Ted. What was I supposed to say yes to now?
Do you think so? You fully believe that was a factor in them not looking good the first half, 2.5 quarters?
I do. I give a percentage of that to that, but they just looked, Ted, they just get run over. They're not tough enough. They get outmanned at the line of scrimmage, run over, thrown around, run through. They're not tough enough. They're not. They just got manhandled by the Bengals.
It was not good.
Their offensive line, that was. You're going to talk about 11-6 with that? I don't know how. I don't know how you're going to do it.
Not anymore. We're not.
No, I don't think so. We also talked about this. Drew and I said, when we did our game preview, I don't know if you saw it or not, but we said if there's a must-win week 1 game, that this was kind of it, because you look at the Vikings schedule next week. Now they're back on the road again, going to Arizona, which handled the Tennessee Titans today. Handled.
Oh, did they?
11-5 team last year. Yeah.
And Chandler Jones only picked up 5 sacks today, so that ought to be fun for the offensive line to deal with.
Yeah. So Rashad Hill's going up against Chandler Jones, which means I believe on our preview we may have to do a Kirk Cousins obituary, but I'm not quite sure yet.
Maybe Derek Thomas's record might be in jeopardy there, Ted.
By halftime.
They just get run through, Ted. It's like even the plays where we do get completions, they just get run over badly. It's bad.
And to go back to the penalty thing for a bit, can't remember who it was. Sam Ekstrom from Zone Coverage put something out. I believe this was at some point during the third quarter. Here were some of the situations that the Vikings faced on third down. They had a 3rd and 26, a 3rd and 20, a 3rd and 15, a 3rd and 24, a 3rd and 20, and another 3rd and 24. That's 6 third downs where you have to pick up at least 15 yards. That's not a recipe for being successful. And
no.
What the hell you're supposed to do there, to be honest. I mean, how many plays do you have for 3rd and 20?
At the end of the third quarter, I went through the play-by-play, and I counted 13 plays the Vikings offense faced of either second down or third down and 15 yards or more to go for a first down.
Wow.
13 plays, and I had one in the fourth quarter, so 14 total. You are not going to win a lot of football games when you have a run-centric offense and you're looking at 2nd and 15 or 3rd and 15 or more to make the first down. Because how many times again did we see the Vikings run the ball on 2nd and long?
Every time.
And first down in overtime, every down. Up the middle for no gain. The down wasting play. Ted and Chris both, isn't it? The Vikings just do enough bad things to lose. That's a Viking loss right there. Just push the envelope. Yeah. Push it. Do enough. Just do enough. Now, if it's that we're going to win the game unless we make 3 more mistakes. Oh, shit. Let's make 3 more. Come on, let's do it. Just enough to do it to lose a game every single time. I don't get it. Have some discipline on your football team. Have some discipline.
I thought the Vikings were cooked. I thought they had absolutely no chance to win this game.
Oh, they were.
And they were. and then I would argue the Cincinnati Bengals coach, Zach Taylor, right? That's his last name, Taylor?
Yeah.
Unbelievable, dude, what that guy did.
Goes for it on 4th down and 1, I believe, at his own 30. The Vikings defense rose up and stopped him. And then the Vikings scored a touchdown. They got within 3. And we had a brand new football game. And I sort of thought, they might do this. They might do this thing. And then those same mistakes we kept talking about, the penalties and the Kirk checking down on 3rd down or a really bad play call by Clint Kubiak, 2nd long, they'd run it right in the middle of the line again. The Vikings are their own worst enemy, it feels like sometimes.
There you go. Arm slap.
No, they really are. I mean,
just doing enough, just enough, waiting for the next bonehead play. Don't do it. Oh, they did it again. Holding, got a 1st down, but it's all being brought back every single time. They just, and you remember when there was a rash of penalties going on and the camera kept panning to Zimmer? They kept panning to Zimmer and he's wandering on the sidelines. I got a high school coach that would have been throwing his headset and stomping people's guts out at that point. And he was just wandering around.
Oh,
I was in there going, how is he not going crazy? How is he not going crazy right now? And he's just wandering around like Larry the Cable Guy at a salad bar. Come on, dude. Give somebody some shit.
Chris, go.
No, Drew's exactly right. I mean, our coach in high school was the same way. He would have been pissed off at what was going on. He had been chewing people out. And I think this is something you guys have touched on, back on the previous shows and in this show you're in now. I'm not sure he's not the same Mike Zimmer he was anymore. And I want to like Mike Zimmer. I really do. I want to, I like the fact that, he obviously has the backing of his guys and whatnot, and they play hard for him and all that. But I mean, he just doesn't have what he used to have anymore. And that worries me a lot. I mean, if this kind of thing keeps up, he's not going to have to worry about it after this year because he's going to be out of a job. But I mean,
one of the things I tweeted. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
No, I'm just saying he should have been a little more pissed off about the whole situation.
It's kind of how I saw it.
Drew was right. Yeah.
I saw it.
One thing I tweeted towards the end of the first half, it was Moose Johnston said, you gotta believe Mike Zimmer is just seething or fuming on the inside, whatever it was he said. And I tweeted out, maybe he should be seething on the outside and chew somebody's rear end over this, because it just seemed, Drew, you were dead on. I'm not saying he was disinterested, but I get, we talk about Bud Grant being stoic and never losing his cool and never yelling. But that worked for Bud Grant because he had a very veteran team that didn't make a lot of mental mistakes until they got to the Super Bowl for whatever reason. When you have a team that is just playing with their head up their ass, maybe grabbing somebody, maybe grabbing a team leader like Patrick, you got to know your guys. You got to know who you can, kind of do this to and who you can't. But take a guy that is like one of the designated team leaders and go up one side of him and down the other, knowing he can handle it, and see the rest of the players and see how they react. And sometimes that works, but it just feels like it was a going through the motions. The whole entire first half felt like the entire preseason, with the exception of the defense. Defense, I thought, looked very good for the first half. They played inspired. They looked fired up. But the offense, like we talked about, just seemed like they were going through the motions and like, ho hum, here we are in Cincinnati. Oh, hey, look, fans are in the stands. Okay, cool. It's week 1. Let's go.
Right.
I don't know. It just and that whole temperament of Mike Zimmer just seemed to feed off onto the rest of the team. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Yeah. So one of you guys tell me I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think you're absolutely right on that.
I used to be a foreman for a construction company. I was a foreman for like 15 guys. I remember a couple jobs, everything went to hell. The owner came out and just read me the ride, me. And I was doing the best, I wasn't making the mistakes. My guys were. And I was like seething, but I knew why he did it, because the rest of the crew sees that, man, if Drew can get his ass chewed, we can get fired.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it works. And then everything, all of a sudden, it shoots back into shape. It hurts for the time being. It hurts your ego and everything. But if you're the foreman, you got to pick up the pieces and make sure shit gets done.
So who's going to chew Mike Zimmer's rear end?
I don't know. That was by the time the penalties, and then the 3rd and 12 with the check down. And you know what? Kirk Cousins, guys, he's got to be better. That guy just sucks sometimes in the pocket. Get out of the pocket. Get your ass out of the pocket. Roll out and make a play. Don't just crumble. Come on. He's got to be better. He's got to play better.
You look at the statistics, and here we go again with the statistics: 36 and 49, 351 and 2 touchdowns. But how many times? And look, and I'm not laying the blame for this loss at the feet of Kirk Cousins.
I'm not either. But come on, man, make plays.
No, but there are times when your quarterback needs to step up and make a play. When you're in overtime and you're driving to win the game, I'm sorry, but I don't think you should be handing the ball to Dalvin Cook. If you have a quarterback that is your guy, and you've got Justin Jefferson, if you've got Adam Thielen, you want to get yards in chunks, man. At that point, the next score wins the game. The Bengals had their chance and they didn't score. Or they didn't score a touchdown. So the Vikings, all they needed to do was get a chunk play to get down to the 15 or 20, maybe the 25. And here they are. And look, Vikings fans are going to say, oh, we got screwed. We got robbed, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sorry, I don't want to hear it. The Vikings should not have been in a position to have to rely once again on the referees to bail them out. That was a close call, and there was not enough video evidence, in my opinion, to overturn that Dalvin Cook fumble in overtime. I think he was down. I do believe he was down. But again, you should not have taken the Cincinnati Bengals should not have taken a team to overtime. They shouldn't have, and they did. And they put themselves in a position to get screwed and to lose the football game, and they should have never gotten to that point to begin with.
I thought he was down too, Ted, but I also thought there wasn't indisputable evidence to change it. They called it a fumble. So I understand the call. I was fine with the call. You have to live with it.
So and then when the defense started, or when the offense started to kind of come to life, they sort of got on track, in the first half, second half. The defense just sort of disappeared. I don't get this inability of both units to play complementary football. That seems to have been a troublesome thing with the Vikings last year, and we see it spill over again into week 1 this year.
Let me ask you guys a question. Let me get your feedback on this. I'm not trying to steal the hostmanship, but I think you guys have better opinions than me. Give me each of your opinion on Clint Kubiak's play calling for that opening game. You guys tell me what you saw, what overall, tell me.
See, I think this goes back to something that you guys have talked about on the show a lot with, Clint Kubiak being a first-time offensive coordinator, his first time calling plays and whatnot, and whether or not he would actually be able to overrule Mike Zimmer on some of these play calls, because that didn't look like, I should say that did look like a Mike Zimmer influenced offensive game plan. Like you said, 2nd and 20, hand it off, whatever. No, don't hand it off on 2nd and 20 every dance. Call something different, for God's sake. But, there were some good things about the offense, and we can get into some of that stuff later, but just as far as Clint Kubiak and whatnot, like I said, I think being as young as he is, I think he's 31, 32 years old, something like that. I'd have to look it up, but I think Zimmer's just going to kind of run him over if he tries to deviate from what Mike Zimmer wants to do. And, like I said, this game plan looked a lot like a Gary Kubiak game plan. And, by default, that looks like a Mike Zimmer game plan. And, I don't know. They need to start changing things up.
So I thought Clint Kubiak called a game to pay tribute to his dad, because 2nd and 20 runs, 3rd and 15 runs, throwing to Tyler Conklin on 3rd and 15 on a crossing route underneath, slowest dude on the field, got 6 yards. Just felt like Chad Beebe out there for a little bit. I loved it. I love how much respect he paid to his father in week 1 as the offensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay, that about answers the question. You know what's funny, guys, when you're watching the game, and I know when you're watching, you guys are watching, and I know you're saying this. Those handoffs to Cook, everybody in the stadium knows he's getting it. The coaching staff of the Bengals players. They even try to slip some screens in and 6 guys tackle him. He's getting it. Cook is a great player, and you want to get him his touches, but don't you want to also use your weapon as a decoy a few times? I mean,
I think there's a fine balance there, and there were a few times where it felt like Dalvin Cook was the only playmaker on the field, though. There were 3 or 4 plays where he willed himself to a first down or to a fairly decent gain to get the Vikings in an advantageous down and distance position, which, I wonder what this offense would look like without Dalvin Cook, to be honest.
I'm not downplaying him, Ted. That's a 31-7 game in the 3rd quarter without Dalvin Cook.
Yes, but
Dalvin Cook's the only reason we're in that game.
Yes, but I do agree with you that you have more than just Dalvin Cook. You have Adam Thielen, who made some great plays. Justin Jefferson, when they finally went to him, made some great plays. But my question is, does the original play call, is it designed to go to Thielen or Jefferson, and then Kirk just checks down because those guys may be covered, or he thinks they're covered, or he feels he doesn't have time, or what? Because it just felt like there were, once again, an inordinate amount of checkdowns.
Checkdown city.
I don't know exactly. I mean, we're not in the huddle. We don't know where the play is designed to go or anything like that. I mean, there were some situations when the offensive line wasn't holding. There were 3 or 4 guys in Kirk Cousins' lap by the time he got to the top of his drop, and there's not much you can do in those situations. He's going to try to get rid of it to somebody, but I mean, I just haven't seen. I mean, I know it's only one game. I haven't seen enough differences between last year's offensive game plan and this year's offensive game plan to think that anything's really going to be any different than what we're used to.
Got a great got a great comment from one of the folks watching, GMAX72. First of all, for all of you that have tuned in and watching, we really appreciate it. Thank you very much. But GMAX got a great comment here. He says the best teams in the NFL are aggressive on offense. And at some point, I wrote this down. I believe it was Chad Graff of The Athletic. At the end of the 3rd quarter, he tweeted, the Cousins' depth of target is 5.1 yards downfield, which means that's how far his average throw went past the line of scrimmage. And I'm sorry, that's just not aggressive. It's just not. Drew, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you didn't. I was just saying I might have been bagging on Cousins a little earlier about making a play. It's only fair to say that he was under duress most of the day. And a lot of times he really didn't have a chance. But if you're not having a chance in the pocket, get out of the pocket. You remember that play when Griffin ran in on Burrow and had him dead to rights?
Yes.
And Burrow spun out and threw a 12-yard pass.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you got to do. That's what you have to do. You have to be able to do that on certain drives, because certain drives you're going to get sacked, but certain drives you have to make that play. Burrow should have been set. Instead of a 6-yard loss, they got a first down out of it. You got to have those first down plays. You have to.
And here's another thing. We talked about Clint Kubiak's play calling. This is one thing that was kind of puzzling to me. Trey Hendrickson got in Rashad Hill's head early. I mean, Rashad Hill had an absolutely terrible game. And instead of trying to neutralize that by doing maybe a waggle naked bootleg, kind of a rollout thing a few times, it didn't feel like the Vikings adjusted to try and give Rashad Hill, just get him back mentally into the game. Hey, look, we're going to roll out opposite of you. If you can just handle your guy for a couple seconds, we should have enough distance between him and Kirk to roll out, get a ball downfield, and maybe make a play. It just felt like that the Vikings didn't do anything to try and counter a lot of what Cincinnati was doing on defense. And maybe I'm wrong there.
No, I agree.
No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, they didn't do as much as they needed to because, like you said, Hendrickson got into Rashad Hill's head pretty much straight away, and they didn't really offer Rashad Hill a lot of help either. I don't think. I mean, I don't know how useful Tyler Conklin or any of the other tight ends are going to be as blockers at that point, but yeah, they didn't even try. They just kept on doing what they were going to do, and didn't really adjust all that much.
Hey, can we talk about something that I thought was vastly improved today?
Go ahead.
It's all quiet.
I want to talk about the 2-minute drill to end the first half. The Vikings, once again, look like a complete clown show.
What the hell was 5-yard passes with no timeouts and the clock's ticking down?
Yeah, and then so you have the arguably one of the most talented set of skill players in the NFL. They're veteran guys and they're all experienced. You've got Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. The line wasn't doing the offense any favors, but they were holding their own enough to be able to make plays, I thought.
Sure.
And they could do absolutely nothing on their 2-minute drill. Then, conversely, you have a guy that's got 10 games under his belt in Joe Burrow coming off a torn ACL, throwing to rookies or really inexperienced guys. And they went down and they scored a touchdown with, 15, 20 seconds left in the half, whatever it was. It felt to me at that point that the game was out of reach because Mike Zimmer, for the better part of 2.5, 3 quarters, got completely out-coached by the Bengals head coach, Zach Adams, Mr. Adams family, whatever his name is. I don't know.
What is his name anyway? Oh,
Zach Taylor.
Zach Taylor.
Yeah.
Whatever. Zach Taylor.
No, I well said.
The 2-minute offense has been a mess for a long time now. I mean, I know they got the drive at the end of the game to get Greg Joseph into a position to send the game into overtime. But the one at the end of the first half, you were right. They went 3 and out, and it was awful. I think there was a penalty mixed in there on that drive, too. And, like you said, you've got Cook, you've got Thielen, you've got Jefferson. You should not be this awful as a 2-minute offense. It just shouldn't. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand it.
I will give the Vikings credit and Kirk credit at the end of the game when they had to go down. He had 1:48 on I think their 15 or 20, whatever it was, no timeouts, and they got Greg Joseph in position to kick a game-tying field goal. That was a heck of a drive. Absolute hats off to the offense and Kirk and calling plays and Clint Kubiak there, but why?
Let me mark that down. We had 13 drives. We had 1 good one. Okay, I got that marked down.
But for the life of me, it just feels like the Vikings treat the end of the first half as a time to just get off the field and get into the locker room. I don't get it. I simply don't get it.
Doesn't it seem like, I don't know, I want to go too rant on this,
Rant. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Doesn't it seem like the Vikings are always, there was a boxer once, one of my favorite boxers growing up, his name was Thomas Hearns, and I watched him fight a lot. Matter of fact, I've seen him win the title live. And he was getting trained by his trainer one day that you want to train you to be a counterpuncher. And after about 3 months, Hearns said, I'm not going to counterpunch shit. I want to hit him. I want to be I want to be an aggressor. I want to have the first punch. I want to have the first punch, and then we'll take it from there. I don't want to wait to counterpunch. That's Hearns. Doesn't it seem like the Vikings are always waiting to counter? They're never taking the first punch. They're not doing it. They're not going out and being aggressive on offense. Since he fails on the opening drive of overtime, they punt it to the Vikings. First play, up the middle, no gain.
It feels like it.
Hold on. Since he fails again on the second drive, Vikings get the ball. What's the first play, Ted?
I'm gonna, off the top of my head, I'm gonna guess a run to Dalvin Cook.
Twice, 2 drives, same play, big giant effing waste of time. Yeah. And let me finish my rant by saying, can you guys sit here right now, look me in the eye through the computer and tell me that Zimmer had the gonads to call that 4th down play that Zach Taylor called at the end to set up the field goal? You tell me.
No.
I have my
no
doubts.
way.
Yeah.
No way.
He absolutely would have punted that ball away and played for the tie.
That's aggressive football. Taylor made a horrible call in the first half, going for it from his own 30 when you had a 21-7 lead and you had all the momentum. He just opened the door for the Vikings. That was a completely baffling, horrible coaching decision. But at the end of the game, that 4th and 1, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Zimmer doesn't do it. Zimmer won't allow that call. He wouldn't allow it.
Although Zimmer did go, there was a 4th down call. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head when it was, but he did go for it on 4th down. I do believe the Vikings.
It was the one right after the Bengals failed on 4th down, because that's when Cousins hit Thielen on the slant and they wound up getting that next touchdown.
Yes.
I absolutely thought he was going to kick the field goal there, and I was pleasantly surprised that he didn't, and it wound up working out because Thielen just kind of walked into the end zone.
That's also a situation that's easier to call than overtime.
Yeah,
that call by Cincy on the 50-yard line, that was a good way to do it. That was a good call. 4th one, it was kind of semi-play action. It wasn't even really a full play action. The running back wasn't near him. So it was just like Burrow doing it on his own, but they took a chance and it paid off. They give the Vikings back the ball at the 50 right there. Man.
Or if Mike Zimmer had gone for it, I would almost guarantee you he would not have called that play, and he would have ran it with Dalvin Cook into the line just to get a 1st down, then spike it, and then try to get another 20, 25 yards. But you're absolutely right, Zach. That call that essentially won Cincinnati the game, that was an onions call. Absolute onions to call.
I want the Vikings to start punching first, guys. I want to be the team that is the aggressor, so they're chasing us. Make the other team chase us for once.
That's a super point, because it never feels like Minnesota is setting the tone either offensively or defensively. Maybe in the first half today, I thought the Vikings defense was pretty aggressive, and they came out. I thought they played pretty good football to begin with. But I would agree that the offense is just there, and they wait to see how the game unfolds before they decide what they're going to do. And that make the other teams react to what you're doing. Go up 10-0, go up 14-0, go up 17-3, and make the offense make the opponent alter their game plan to catch up to what you're doing. And it never, you're right. It feels like the Vikings don't
counterpunch, Ted. Counterpunch.
Yes.
They're waiting to see what the other team does. Oh, okay, we'll do this now, rather than just saying, let's do this and put them on their heels. Let's do this and put them back on their heels. So make them guess. Make them guess now and then.
You know, as an aside, that Marvin Hagler, Tommy Hearns fight might have been the best boxing match in history.
The best 3 rounds ever in the history of boxing. I was like, when I was watching that fight, I looked at my brother and said, I could bench 1,700 pounds right now.
That was 8 minutes of pure unadulterated violence. If you've never seen it, go watch it on YouTube. It is phenomenal.
It is. It's amazing. It really
is. Glad bring that up.
I want to.
Go ahead, Chris.
I do want to kind of go. I want to kind of go back to something you guys said on the preview show the other day. You guys talked about the injuries to the tight ends and how Mike Zimmer basically went to the microphone at the press conference with his teeth gritted and talked about how he had to run more 3 wide receiver sets because he didn't have the tight ends he wanted anymore.
Yes.
For the first time in God knows how actually long, we might actually have a legitimate wide receiver 3 here, because Adam Thielen led the way, obviously, 9 catches, 92 yards, both the Kirk Cousins touchdowns. Your second leading receiver today was in fact KJ Osborne, 7 catches, 76 yards. Jefferson had 5 for 71. And Osborne had that nice play early on where the Vikings were looking at like 3rd and forever, and they threw that little short one to Osborne. He broke a tackle and blasted down to set up like the Vikings' first touchdown and whatnot. I know all he did last year as a rookie was return punts, and he was pretty terrible at it. But I mean, he has obviously made leaps and bounds as a receiver now, and he might actually. I don't know if he could actually gain the trust of Zimmer and Kubiak here at some point. I hope he does, because if you can get that kind of production out of 3 wide receivers, that's pretty impressive, especially when your wide receiver room for the last couple of years has basically been either Diggs and Thielen or Jefferson and Thielen and like literally nobody else. So big props to that guy for stepping up and having a solid game for this one. Hopefully that'll help change the Vikings offense a little bit.
Here's another good comment from one of our viewers, Riley Emmert. He said, this goes back to what you were talking about, what we were just talking about a minute ago. Cleveland going for 2 after the first TD. I don't know if you saw the score earlier. It was 8-0 Browns over Kansas City. That's setting the tone. That's sending a message, and they've got the Chiefs on their heels as we speak. I don't know what the score is. I've got to look it up.
You know what?
But that is exactly what I think we are all talking about. The Minnesota Vikings never take it to the other team. They're just content to play, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, traditional situational football.
That's a great comment by Riley Emmert. Shout out to him today, man. That is a great comment.
And getting close to the 2-minute warning at Kansas City, it is Cleveland 22, Kansas City 10. And another score that folks are going to be big fans of at halftime in Jacksonville, Saints 17, Packers 0.
Thanks, Chris. I was taping that game to watch it afterwards.
Oh, I bet you were.
I
bet you were. Whatever. You can pull it up the same way as I can, damn it.
You know what? I got
what the hell?
KJ Osborne, to kind of piggyback on what you just said, didn't he have that huge catch at midfield to keep the drive going where Joseph kicked the tying field goal?
Yes, he did.
It was kind of a tough catch off the ground, really tough catch. It looked like to me. So shout out to KJ Osborne today.
He had a hell of a game today.
Two guys I think deserve recognition today. You guys already mentioned KJ Osborne. And how about Nick Vigil on the defensive side of the ball?
And a lie.
Second leading tackler for the Vikings today.
I thought he played a heck of a good game.
Hell of a game.
Did.
And so let me ask you this now. With Anthony Barr missing another game, I mean, he missed 15 games last year. He missed a few the year before. Is Barr a guy? I mean, I don't, and I'm purely speculating here, but he missed week 1. He's had knee injuries in the past. I don't know if this is a chronic thing, maybe like an arthritic kind of deal with his knee. It just feels like we are going to miss, I think Anthony Barr is going to miss a lot more games than he's going to play in his future. And I'm thinking Nick Vigil might be the guy to take over for Anthony Barr. And if that's the case, I can't say that I'm going to be really irritated if he can continue his level of play that we saw today.
No, and I think I've read somewhere that Barr had knee issues like early on in his career. He had a meniscus or something like that he was having troubles with his first couple years in the league. So there's been some speculation that, this might be a chronic thing for him. He's either approaching 30 or he's already past 30. And that's kind of the age where, the linebackers are going to start kind of going downhill anyway. And if this is a chronic thing for him, when they redid his contract this last time, I think this is the last season he's under contract with the Vikings anyway. So
this is it for him.
I mean, if this is a chronic knee thing for him, this is probably his last season. And
you know what this is for Barr? You know what this is for Barr with the Vikings?
What?
This is that last tour where Elvis came out with that big ass gut. And he's all sweating like he's sweating cold cuts and just didn't look the same.
Sweating cold cuts.
He did. He looked like he's sweating baloney and shit. It didn't look good, man. Elvis didn't look good his last tour. It's like you're watching it, you're going, man, that guy's due for an H attack. That guy Barr. This is it for Barr. Whatever, 8 games, 5 games, whatever he plays. This is his last year with the Vikings. But Ted, you're right. Vigil played a really good game today.
Yes, I believe so.
How do you guys feel about the D-line overall? I mean, they sacked Burrow 5, 6 times?
5. Michael Pierce was very impressive to me. Chris, go ahead. What do you think?
Michael Pierce had 2 sacks. All we hear about is how he can stop the run, how he can just plug holes in the middle.
Oh my
Dude
God!
Up 2 sacks today. He damn near killed Joe Burrow on one of those.
Dude, he's Jerry Ball.
Pierce had 2, and Danielle Hunter finally at the end of the game got into the backfield and took down Burrow for one.
That was a big play, though. That was a huge play.
It was.
Hunter sack.
And then the other sack was Harrison Smith. He could have damn near taken the handoff on that play if he would have wanted to. Yeah. He was in the backfield so fast. And yeah, Vigil had one too. He got the first one and put Burrow back like 12 yards. So
D-line
they got 5 sacks, but they got 5 sacks. But like we said, they're when they need to make a big play, most of the time it's not there. I mean, you talked about the Hunter sack that came at the biggest possible time it could have, but otherwise, like that 4th down play, or the Bashaud Breeland getting just roasted by Jamar Chase at the end of the first half. That was, I mean, when they need a big play, it's not always there. And
when Chris is talking about, when you're talking about needing a big play, there's 5:12 left in the game. We punt to Cincinnati. Mixon, first carry, 11 yards. Mixon, second carry, 12 yards. Okay, wait, guys. There's 5 minutes left in the game. They're running the ball. They get first downs on successive runs. That's what Chris Gates is talking about. When you need to step it up, and you need the big play, that's when you got to come through with it. And they didn't.
And I'll tell you, another guy that started out, I thought he started out very strong today, and then his game went south really fast, was Bashaud Breeland. I thought the first quarter he played a really good football game, and then he got caught out of position, then got called for a penalty, and then he gave up that big touchdown at the end of the half to Jamar Chase, and his game really just never recovered from there. When you take into account Cameron Dantzler, who ended the season as the Vikings' top cornerback, being inactive today, he was a healthy scratch. It just feels like the Vikings defense is the defensive line. I think we all agree is better, because they had scrubs that weren't much better than us 3 playing by the end of last year. But it feels like it's a defense that still needs a lot of work and time to work together. And hey, maybe a 3 or 4 more series in preseason would have helped out, but what do I know?
No, and like you guys have said, these might be veteran guys and everything, but if you've not been on the same field at the same time together, it doesn't matter how veteran you are, because you still have to communicate with those guys. I mean, Harrison Smith has been here forever, but we don't know what his level of communication with guys like Peterson or Breeland or any of those other guys are. I mean, they could have used a couple more series in the preseason, I think, but that's not the way they rolled, and it might have cost them.
It kind of feels like it did to a point, and I don't know, man. This was a brutal loss in more ways than one for the Vikings, because
yes,
they needed to start out 1-0. They got the Arizona Cardinals next week, who looked really good today. Kyler Murray had himself a game, and Joe Burrow. I mean, we talk about Kirk Cousins' stats. Joe Burrow, 20 of 27, 261 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Got sacked 5 times, but for a guy that hadn't played since, I believe it was like October of last year, he looked pretty good. He looked in command of the Bengals offense, and at times he made the Vikings defense look downright silly.
At about the 11-minute mark of the second quarter, he started carving us up. He started getting into a rhythm. He started hitting all of his passes. You could see his confidence building. By the time he hit that long one to Chase, his confidence was sky high. Yep. So Burrow, but you know what? What's most concerning to me, Cincinnati's not that good of a football team. They're not. Their offensive coordinator was keeping us in this game. You talk about conservative. That guy handed off every 1st and 10. That guy went easy. I'm watching the game going, thank God they're not running any jet sweeps or anything, or we'd be getting killed. We would. He was just as conservative on that side of the ball if we had any question about the Vikings on the other side. There was some 3 and outs where he was just calling some, I don't know who it is. I don't know who the coordinator is, but Cincinnati's a bad team, and they had bad play calling on offense, and they somehow figured out a way to win. So where does that put us?
Good question. Where does it put us, Christopher Gates? You tell me.
I mean, like you said, we got Arizona coming up. We got Seattle coming up after them. I can't remember what the score of the Seattle game was, but I think Seattle was pretty solid this first week. It's not looking quite as promising as it was at about noon Central Time this afternoon. That's for sure.
You know, Seattle beat Indianapolis 28-16. One of the things I like about the expectations that have been set for the Minnesota Vikings is that Ziggy Wilf is almost in a position where he has to do something if this Vikings team fails to live up to expectations. For that, I'm grateful, because when the Vikings made all the offseason moves that they did and they revamped their defense and all that other stuff, it became a win now or there are going to be consequences. And for those of us that wanted those consequences to come maybe a season or two ago, I was like, okay, and I'm one of those guys. I'm okay, fine, whatever. But I still don't think the crux of the problems that the Vikings had got fixed. And I think we saw that today. It's an undisciplined football team that makes stupid mistakes at the worst times. And even though they can make an occasional play, that 2-minute drive at the end of the game, the Danielle Hunter sack in overtime, those are more the exception than the rule. And it's to the point where the Minnesota Vikings, I don't think right now can be considered a good football team. This feels very much like a carryover from the 7-9 team from last year. Am I wrong on that, or am I not? Was this just a bad game and they're going to figure it out, or is this?
Ted, how many times did we say that last year? How many times did we say that last year? This is just a bad game and they're going to figure it out. How many times?
5, 6. I don't know,
man.
This is the Vikings doing what the Vikings do and playing to the level of their competition. Like you said, the Bengals are not a good football team.
They're not.
They're clearly the fourth best team in their division by some distance. And if you're not going to figure it out against this team, who are you going to figure it out against?
You know,
are you going to figure it out against an Arizona team last week that beat the crap out of Tennessee? Probably not.
A Tennessee team that, by the way, went 11-5 and went to the playoffs last year.
I didn't see the outcome of the game. Ted said the Cardinals worked the Titans today. I don't know any scores from earlier, so that's kind of surprising to me. I didn't expect that.
It was let me find it here. Arizona 38, Tennessee 13.
Wow!
In Nashville.
Tennessee.
In Nashville.
Holy!
In Nashville.
Kyler Murray accounted for all 5 of their touchdowns.
Zimmer's ass isn't puckering already. It is now.
And
you better find something. You better turn this team around in a hurry.
And who has an offense remarkably similar to the Tennessee Titans?
The Vikings do.
I mean, I'm just saying.
No, that's.
I'm just saying, boys.
That's a good point.
And Tennessee's offensive line is infinitely better than ours is too. So there's that.
So
and like I said, Chandler Jones only put up 5 sacks today against Tennessee. So yeah.
Wow.
GMAC has had a couple of more great comments. One of them is Zim has had 8 years. Who thinks his best days are ahead of him at this point? And then he follows that up with, this was the preseason game we needed the starters playing in. I think those two comments go hand in hand, because raise your hand if you think Mike Zimmer's best coaching days are ahead of him. Come on, show of hands. Toots, I know your screen is hidden. What about, is your hand up? I'll take your word for it as whether or not your hand is up. We'll just say no, it's not. And that just kind of goes to the Vikings' approach and mentality. We had a great question on a show a couple weeks ago. Why, when the Vikings played the Chiefs, why would the Chiefs play a team that went to the Super Bowl? Hey, they played almost all their starters for at least the first half, and the Vikings played half their starters for like 2 or 3 series. and here we are.
Here we are. I was getting ripped. I was getting ripped all preseason. Drew, it's just preseason. You don't know how these things work. Oh, yeah, well, tell me how they work. Then they come out and they have 2 false starts in their first 3 plays.
Tell me
how it works. Tell me how this football stuff works. Unbelievable, dude. You know what, Ted? This guy, I'm going to give this to G-Mac right now because G-Mac has had he brought it today.
All right. There's your gift. There's your gift winner, G-Mac 72. Congratulations.
This custom Randy Moss photo that I have with the Viking background, it's exceptional. And you brought it today in a loss. You showed up. You've had good comments. Ted's been pointing out your comments. So G-Mac gets the prize today.
All right. Well, that's a worthy prize, I think. G-Mac, just get a hold of Atunces, and we'll figure out how to get the prize to you. So.
Is that game next week on the road, you guys?
Yeah, it's in Arizona.
Yep.
They started off these first 2 games on the road. Yeah.
What the hell is going to happen? What do they need to do, Chris? Besides the dumb mistakes, what would you like to see the Vikings do, Chris Gates?
I mean, they need to not have 12 freaking penalties in one game.
Yeah.
That would help. I mean, and they need to take more shots. They do. The 5-yard passes are not going to get it done. Like I said in my preview on DN, if Mike Zimmer could give Dalvin Cook 60 carries every game, that's exactly what he'd do. But he can't do that. I mean, Cousins is more than capable of getting the ball to Thielen and Jefferson, and now you've got Osborne that's worked himself in, and everything else. They can't think they're going to sustain 12 and 13-yard play drives on every possession because you can't do that in the NFL. Nobody can do that, and especially not a team that's going to commit 4 freaking penalties on the first drive and 12 penalties for a game and constantly putting itself in like 3rd and 20 and 3rd and 25. You need to start taking shots. You need to start being more aggressive, and they're not going to listen to my advice because I mean, why would they? But that's what they have to do. That's going to help this offense a lot.
It's the same problems over and over, though, guys. Ted, it's the same thing, Ted.
It is, and we talked about how many. Let me look it up. I think I said 14.
Yeah, that was an amazing stat you threw out.
14 total, 2nd or 3rd and 15s, or 2nd and 15 or 3rd and 15 and greater down and distance situations. That's appalling. That's absolutely appalling. And the fact they were in this game and took it to overtime when we talk about the penalties and those down and distance situations is a testament to the incompetence of the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Vikings still couldn't get it done. So you do this next week on the road against the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray and Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins. Good God, they might hang 53 as a tribute to Mick Tingelhoff on this team.
Easy 50 burger. I mean, we went to overtime because we were playing the Bengals.
Yeah. So, I mean, congratulations to the Cincinnati Bengals. They won and they got it done when they had to.
Right.
But this was a game I think we all penciled in as a W when the schedule came out. And this is a brutal way to open the season. And if they don't clean things up really fast, I remember last year when the Vikings started 1-4 and 1-5, that they just seemed like a team on the verge of a complete meltdown. And I don't know that they will be able to recover and do that again because you've got so many other things at play with personalities that are back that were not on the team last year. And I just, Drew, you said something really, I think, interesting in the preseason. And you said it just feels like there's something off with this team. And I sort of felt that today. And I don't know where it's coming from, whether it's indifference or apathy from the coaching staff or players in the locker room or what, but it's just something that I can't put my finger on it. I don't know either, but it just seems like there's something not right about this team right now.
One thing I want to ask you guys about the game as a whole, When was the last time we had a Minnesota Vikings game where the best and most consistent part of the team was the special teams?
Toonses, do the crickets right here.
Because we saw what happened with Greg Joseph. I mean, they got him in position to kick the field goal, and he drilled the first one.
He hit twice, didn't he?
Called time, and they called timeout, and literally everybody on social media was like, "Oh, there's no chance in hell he makes the second one," and he made the second one, and that was awesome.
What
and then
about
in
that
overtime,
punt?
we had Jordan Berry just blast one like 62 yards all the way down to the 10-yard line. I mean, the special teams were the best. The special teams were the best, and there was that one kickoff return where the Bengals returner stupidly brought it out of the end zone or whatever, and Harrison Hand just destroyed him at like the 5-yard line.
Yeah.
The special teams was the best part of this team today, and that never happens.
That's kind of scary right there.
And what Barry did was not so much of a punt as it was an ICBM re-entering Earth's atmosphere, because he freaking smoked that football.
That was impressive.
He smoked that football.
I watch all the Viking games with the volume on 0, but so you can't really tell what, certain intangibles of the game. He hit that punt, and I see the Bengals guy moving back and moving back and moving back, and I'm going, holy hell, how many yards was that? They put him at like the 9-yard line. What a great overtime punt. That was overtime. That was overtime, right?
Hey, here's a question that was asked by one of our our viewers.
Let's hear it.
Mr. Let's see. Well, I just had it. Where's Jim Hare? Mr. Hare, Jim, thanks for joining us. Do you think Zimmer is fired by midseason if they only win 1 or 2 games?
If this team starts 1-5, he's looking for a job by the bye week. I think the bye is in week 7 this year. Yeah. If this team starts 1-4, 1-5 again, he's out of a job. He's got to be. You can't continue this if he starts 1-5.
I agree, but I kind of thought Atlanta was it Atlanta they got schooled last year and then they had the bye?
And Atlanta was winless. Atlanta was winless. 0-5 came in here and beat us. And I remember doing a show with the great Flip Mozzie, and Flip said, "Drew, there's no way Zimmer makes it through the week," and he did.
Yeah.
So if he didn't get fired last week after that Atlanta loss, I don't know if the Wolves have it in them to cut anybody mid-season. I don't know.
All right. So look, we've been going on close to an hour.
Let me add one thing. Let me add just one thing. You mentioned about 10 minutes ago about same reoccurring thing over and over. And now we hear Zimmer's going to go to the press conference. Well, made too many penalties, had too many mistakes, and we need to play better. And when are people when are you going to clear the smoke away from your face and realize it's just the same thing over and over? When does it stop? When does it stop, guys?
I don't know, because it's frustrating to see this team do the same things for the most part, week in and week out. And there really doesn't seem to be the level of accountability that there should be with the coaching staff.
It's just the same excuses every press conference. We need to do better. We need to do better. Well, you're not doing. I don't know. I think you said it best. It just seems like a continuation of last year's team.
Today felt very much like it. I mean, it's a long season, and maybe they can right the ship next week against Arizona, and there's 15 games after that. But this was not overall a very good first impression when you're trying to get rid of the perception of you being a 7-9 football team. This looked like very much like a 7-9 football team, or 7-10 or 8-9, whatever it is they're going to be this year.
You got to win this. You got to win to Chris Gates. You got to win this game today. You got to beat Cincinnati. You have to win this game. If you want to get to the playoffs, you got to win. You got to beat Cincinnati opening week.
Absolutely. And I know the Bengals have the young talent and whatnot, but
they're not.
Like we've said, there's 4 teams in the AFC North. They're pretty clearly number 4 at this point. We got to play the rest of the AFC North, which means we got to play Baltimore. We got to play Pittsburgh, who beat Buffalo today, and we got to beat whoever the hell else is in the AFC North. I can't remember right now.
Tennessee.
My head.
Baltimore's not.
No, they're in the South.
Cincinnati is not winning more than 3 or 4 games all year.
Cleveland, that's who it is. Cleveland, who's currently smoking the defending AFC champions.
They're going to get their tits licked by Cleveland.
Yeah, it's going to get ugly. And you got
to win today.
This was one you had to have, and you didn't have it, and you can't put it any more simply than that, I don't think.
instead of saying, hey, look, there are a lot of mistakes made. We got to clean stuff up, but we can get better, which is what you would typically say after a sloppy win. Now you're staring 0-2 in the face, going on the road against a team that lit up a good football team on their home field today. If the Vikings don't figure this out fast, this thing has a chance to really go off the rails in a way we haven't seen maybe since Brad Childress. And I hope that doesn't happen, but man, there's just a lot of unsettled feelings for me with this team right now. Chris, you mentioned, look, the Bengals have a lot of young talent. The Vikings have a lot of veteran talent. And when you're a veteran team with a veteran coach and a veteran coaching staff, you should not have lost to this football team today. Period. Dot.
You want to know the kind of vibes I'm getting now that you're talking about past seasons and whatnot. Remember what happened back in, I believe it was 2001, the Vikings coming off an NFC Championship game. They host the Carolina Panthers in the first game of the season at the Metrodome, and they lost to the Panthers that day. And then the Panthers lost their last 15 games and went 1-15 that year, and they ran Denny Green out of town.
Only game they won that year, the Carolina Panthers.
If it goes badly next week at Arizona, I think that's exactly the parallel we're going to have to draw here, because like we said, if you can't figure it out against a Cincinnati team that at the end of the day really isn't very good, when the heck are you going to figure it out? And if this goes bad, they lose to Arizona, they lose to Seattle, they start out 0-3, maybe steal a win here and there, but this is kind of starting to feel like Denny Green's last season. And Denny Green made it all the way to the end of the year. I mean, he resigned or got fired before the very last game that season. But yeah, we started out with a bad loss to a team there is no way that they should have lost to. And if it doesn't get better in a hurry, I think that's exactly the kind of scenario we're looking at.
Well, on that sobering note,
I'm gonna add right to the end of that, like a little parallel on the end of that. I am goddamn glad we got Chris Gates on the show. That is some good stuff right there. Isn't it, Ted?
It was fantastical.
Christopher Gates, thank you so much for being on Vikings Rewind with us. We got a lot of games to look forward to. And
freaking bluebird of happiness over here. That's what I
No. You know what? You're the bluebird of realisticness. I like realistic takes. Telling it like it is. And I know there's fans out there that say, these guys aren't real fans if you're critical of the team. That's all bullshit. You can love your team and be critical. I mean, how can you watch that today and not have some criticism? There's some good things, but come on. You got to win this game.
Exactly.
You can't go out there and play
they did.
Like that.
That was a must-win game, and they didn't win it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Chris, you got any last words on today's game?
No, I mean, it's disappointing. I think we were all anticipating celebrating a victory this afternoon, and then it looked like we were going to get at least a tie, and then all of a sudden we're talking about a 27-24 loss. We're going to do this every week, which is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it already. But I really don't have anything else to add other than what we've gone over here today.
Okay, Drewster.
G-Mac, this is for you. Thank you for having the great comments. Thank you for everybody who showed up to watch Vikings Rewind today. Our first show of the opening season. Man, the Vikings really brought it today, didn't they? We don't mean to sound like we're ripping too much, but man, that was a tough loss. And if you're watching the show, you're in agreement with us. You're agreeing that they need to get better. But it's always fun to hang out with my boy, Ted Glover, the best host in the business, and the great Christopher Gates from Daily Norseman. And I will leave you folks with something my Uncle Paulie was probably going to say later on today. As Uncle Paulie would say, happy is the man who endures during trials and tribulations. Let's just remember that.
Okay.
If you can endure the hard stuff, you can be happy. Now, Uncle Paulie is 90, so we don't really know if he's coherent all the time, but I'll leave you with those words. Great job on the show today, guys.
Best wishes to Uncle Paulie. GMAX72, congratulations on the prize. You need to get a hold of Ruby at Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com. Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com to hook up with to get that picture out to you. We will be recording another episode of Vikings Report with Drew and Ted tomorrow. Look for that next Friday. Look for our next live episode of Vikings Report Rewind next Sunday after the Vikings hopefully beat the Cardinals. I think they can do it. They got a lot of stuff to clean up. Just need to play better. And we will see you guys later. And thank you so much all for joining us. And thank you for all the comments.
Say good night, Ted.
Good night, Ted.
Hey, Chris, did he just say we need to play better?
He sure did. I heard it.
Did you catch it? I was doing that on purpose.